So I always like to start with gratitude. This is my son, this is my dog, and I think we're all better together, and we're seeing that here today. And so I want you to just pull out your phone. As I saw you all on your phones, right? I want you to send a text to someone who's believed in you, who's supported you. We're away from our family and friends, but send a note to someone of gratitude. Because what I have learned in my life, my CEO coach, is you cannot be frustrated and grateful at the same time. So I want you to be in the grateful spirit, grateful heart. So just 30 seconds. Find someone who's invested in you. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. All right. I want to talk about Valentine's Day 2000. I had just survived Y2K. Anyone here in a place where we thought Y2K was actually going to take down all of our computer systems, and I had just survived. And so I had gotten past one heart attack, and I was running a company that went from 5.9 million to 15 million in 18 months. And so high growth. I know that's smaller than a lot of the companies in here. But as a senior leader, that was pretty crazy. We'd made the Franchise 500 for the second time in a row. We were raising venture capital. This was right during the dot-com boom. And so unless you had .com at the end of your name, you weren't raising venture capital. We were the dumb retail people trying to do it. And I started working 100-hour weeks. And I know people say like, oh, it was crazy, I worked 100-hour weeks. I literally started working 100-hour weeks. I had a couch outside of my office, and I would walk out, I would sleep on the couch, and I would go back to work. And people would say, didn't you wear that yesterday? And I would say, yes, I did. And I wore it as a badge of honor. And it was a stupid badge of honor, because on Valentine's Day, I woke up and I thought I was having a heart attack. And I was 26 years old. And as I laid on the hospital gurney watching this little EKG next to me, 3 little electrodes, I started counting the dots in the industrial ceiling tile. And I thought to myself, what have you done? I could not help my team. I couldn't help my stores that I had rolled out. I couldn't help anyone. And what I learned in that minute was that if you become financially wealthy and emotionally bankrupt, you've lost the game. Take it from me. I did it. In the midst of all of this, I had turned down a $5 million offer to be invested. We didn't like the terms. I walked in, and about 37 minutes after turning that down, my bookkeeper pulled me aside, and she said, we can't make payroll. What? Can't make payroll? Just tap the line of credit. She said, I have been tapping the line of credit. And I went from thinking I was going to be a part of the elite, venture-backed, to realizing that we were 1.7 million in debt, $934,000 of vendor debt, most of which was past due, and $741,000 on a line of credit. You want to talk about being shaken awake, right? So you know your numbers. And just a quick sidebar, know your numbers, right? It gave me a moment to think, have you ever considered the purpose of your life? Because I got the equation wrong, right? The price of showing up in the Franchise 500, the price of being known around town for our industry, I was the soccer guy, right? Came at a cost. I tell this story and my wife still does not believe me. But I was working so hard, traveling so much, I did not kiss a woman for 4 years. She just still does not believe me. It is true. That is not something you brag about. And I just thought, what am I doing? What is the purpose of everything that's happening here? And I really came to the conclusion that living your life on your terms is the highest purpose of everything that we can do. So some people call it happiness. And I make a distinction between happiness and fulfillment. So fulfillment is that alignment of I'm living my world on my terms. Happiness is temporal. Like I can be happy in the minute and then stub my toe and be really pissed off, right? So it's temporal. And so I've been trying to think about the importance of living life on your terms. And for me, it comes down to influence. Can you get a seat at the table? Does your voice matter? Because in today's day and age, I've sat at that table, and I know that sometimes when we're evaluating candidates, Shaniqua and Cindy may have very similar resumes, but Cindy gets the interview. And I've been in the room where a woman in her 20s who's the most capable candidate gets passed over because she's of childbearing years, and perhaps how long will we have her? Influence in organizations is super critical. It's also super critical in your life. If you don't have a voice, if you don't have agency over what it is that you're doing, I think you're missing an opportunity to live your life on your terms. Because if you don't have agency, man, that's got to be frustrating. Anyone here worked for someone where you didn't have agency over what it was that you're doing? Your voice was minimized, diminished. We're not publishing this because I'm going to tell some stories that we can't publish, right? So, me too, right? So I think influence is the capacity to affect someone's behavior. It's about persuasion and inspiration, and comes from an ability to connect, build trust, and inspire action. And so to me, that's what we're talking about. And I think it's different than authority, power, and influence, right? Because I have been a CEO a couple times. I've had positional authority. I walk in the room, people sit up a little bit straighter. I don't know why that is, but it happens, right? I've had the power. I can impose my will on the organization, even when other people say otherwise. But it's very hard to get things done inside your organization if you don't have influence. Period, end of story. So for me, in thinking about this, influence comes at the intersection of authenticity, intention, and trust. And it's how I think about how you get to that place of having a voice at the table. Now, I've never given this talk before, so I may change my mind in the future. But this is how I think about it right now. So I want to align authenticity, alignment of your actions with your true self. Have you done things in your life and your career that you did because someone else wanted you to do it? Anyone do that? Let me raise my hand, the highest of everyone. I've done that lots, right? And we sacrifice our values, our beliefs, and our personality. Our true self can't show through. I guarantee all of you have had moments like that where just can't be myself. And I think about things in alignment. So the only way that you can have fulfillment in being able to do this is the alignment of your life on your terms. Your vision for the world, your values, yourself showing up. And when that happens, you start to puff your chest out. Feels a little bit better, even when it doesn't work out. Because when I live my life on other people's terms, not only am I disappointed, I'm like, shit, not really getting what I want out of life. But they're disappointed because you never do it quite exactly the way it should be done. And you get one of those big FUs, right? So for me, as I think about my work with leaders, one of the things that you have to do is be super authentic in your work. Because we have to create a predictable environment for our people to thrive. A predictable environment for our people to thrive. Because so many times, you've had this, Jody, we talked about this last night. One day, it was cool to do it that way. You walk in and you get blindsided. You're like, wait a second, 2 days ago, we were able to do it this way, and now it's a problem this way. And that confusion just leads you to a place of, what is this person all about? How do I do my best work? So I think authenticity is maybe the most important piece of getting to influence. For me, I had to learn about being really authentic. I grew up in a house where my father was addicted to gambling and my mother was an alcoholic. And as the youngest of four, I was often left behind because my brothers and sisters had already left the house. And my mom was this amazing woman. And when she was not drinking, everyone loved her as Mom Mac. But when she was drinking, that snake tongue would come out, and boy, was it a very hard place to be. And in one interaction, we had been through rehab 5 times, and I was in my room, and I played baseball. I was a sophomore in high school. And my mom, in an interaction, was begging me to hit her with the baseball bat. And I was holding that baseball bat as hard as I could hold it. White knuckle driving. You ever driven in the snow? White knuckle? That's how hard I was holding that bat. And I still remember swinging as hard as I could. And I thank God that I swung at the bed and not my mom. And I put that bat down and I thought to myself, I am not going to jail for the rest of my life because of this. And it got me to a place of thinking, how do I reconcile this woman who's the most amazing person I've ever met, Mom Mac, and yet this venomous snake tongue that just said mean, nasty things? And so I had to do the work, right? We all have beliefs and experiences and traumas that we bring through. And we've got to be aware of those things. So for me, the work that I did on authenticity is my first value is love. For business, it shows up as love your people and treat them as whole people. Some people say, I don't want to hear about the stuff that you have at home. I do, I lean into it. Because we are whole people. If you're not good at work, you can't be great at home. And if you're not good at home, you can't be great at work. And when I think about this in my personal life, which I really appreciate Matt saying this, is that love is the ultimate superpower. And what I found is that when you lead with love, everything just falls into place. But we get in our own way. We tell ourselves the stories. No one wants to hear that. What do I have to say that's valuable? You do. Lots of things to say that's valuable. Who has written values, intentions, or beliefs? Actually written them down, right? Handful of people, right? One of my earliest mentors said, it doesn't exist if it's not in writing. Because if it's not in writing, then you can't be accountable. And when I do this and I talk to people, I say, do you have values? They say, of course I do. What are your values? Well, I mean, like trustworthiness, integrity. It's like, yeah. No, do you really have values? Have you really thought about it and gotten yourself to a place of alignment so that you can be accountable? Because the only way that you can show up as your authentic self is if you actually do the work. So for me, I love therapy. I've had to do a lot of therapy. I had some hard things happen in my life. I'm grateful for them. They happened for me, not to me. And when you change your perspective of how you want to experience that, you change the dynamic of how you can show up in life. If you don't do that work, you miss the opportunity to live your life. Everyone always asks about my mom, so I will tell the rest of the story. My mom lived 16 years. She was given a week to live the day after Christmas because her liver was failing. She made it 7 months to a liver transplant and then lived 16 years. I had a great relationship with my mom the second half. That ability to be in love gave me the opportunity to reconcile with my mom. I had lots of reason to be pissed off. You know who it didn't serve? Didn't serve me. It was a weight that I was unwilling to hold on to anymore. And so I changed it. If your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions aren't serving you, change them. You are the only person that can do it. But you have to do the work. Understand the things. And I tell my CEOs, Matt and I have had this conversation before, when we show up in ways where we go, God, that's not who I aspire to be. Why did I do that? There is something in your life that taught you that pattern, like my dad would take off. So I have that tendency. I have bad relationships, walk away. It doesn't help, it doesn't change anything. Got to do the hard work. You have to have the emotional intelligence to have the crucial conversations. And so you have to do the work. Otherwise, you're never going to live your full self. My mom did pass away 8/8/20. And I don't know, if you tilt your head just the right way, I look at the infinity sign. My mom is 8/8/20. She is the infinity. I'm going to give you a course that I have done. It's called The Leadership Gap. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. But people say, okay, that's great. I've never done my values. Where do I start? I've never written a vision statement. I don't know how to do that. And so I'm going to give you some worksheets to be able to work through that so that you can be accountable for yourself. Second piece is intention. Clear sense of purpose and goals directing your actions. Achieved outcomes. How are we doing what we're doing? I've thought about this when we were in the sessions. What is the outcome that you expect Why are we doing this, right? We've asked that a lot of ourselves. We should be asking the same thing of ourselves personally, right? What is my intention for life so that I can show up in that way? It's one of my favorite quotes. Everyone wants a friend. Not everyone wants to be a friend. It is inconvenient to be a friend, but it's necessary. One of my life formulas is I want 3 YWs to equal 1 TY. I want to say 3 times more you're welcome than thank you, because that to me tells me I am living my life in service to other people. What's your life formula? What's your intention? How are you showing up in the world? And Austin Kleon, similar, one of my favorites. People want to be the noun without doing the verb. Have you ever met people who say, oh, we should do that. We could do that. It's like, okay, Jackie, get off the bench. Like, come on, let's go. There's nothing more frustrating than that, at least to me. Without intention, what happens? You end up blowing like a leaf in the wind, and you get disillusioned. It's one of the things that I ask CEOs, because I work with companies that typically are in high growth mode. So on the outside, everyone's like, oh my God, you made the Inc. 5000, that's amazing. And I talk to the CEO, they're like, holy shit, this sucks. Like, well, why'd you start the business? They go, I don't know. I forgot why I started the business. And we get lost in the chase, that price cost, financially wealthy, emotionally bankrupt, you get lost in the chase. So you need the intention of where you're going. And I thought about intention because who do you want to be? That's my guy, Buzz Lightyear, right? To infinity and beyond. So the last company that I ran before starting this one, I had a misalignment with the owner who had brought me in. Great guy. We just have different approaches to life. He was more this guy. So you guys are in event marketing. One of the things that we did was we had lunches at places like Ruth Chris. And part of the protocol that he had was you had to call 3 times the day before the event and speak to 3 different people to make sure that the event was on the books. I said, I have more important things to do. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. I didn't have the shares of the company, so I had to take my time and my talent somewhere else. And sometimes you will get stuck in your career and you will think, what am I doing here? This doesn't align. I have no ill will to that guy. Like, he's not my favorite person. Like, it's okay, right? But I was wasting my time and talent in that environment. And sometimes that's the hard truth that we have to face, is to say, this doesn't get me from the place that I am to the place I want to go. And that's a hard conversation. My wife had it with me. She pulled me aside and she said, you're not a great husband, not a great dad, and you don't have friends because you're traveling so much. She said, you should quit your job. And I listened to her. I left that position. I loved the work that I was doing. I loved the people I was doing it with. But the day-to-day interactions just didn't align with the intentions. It sent me on this mission. It was the first time in my career where I looked up and I thought, holy shit, this is what it means not to like your job. I could always change the rules of the game. I had the influence. So he had positional authority, he had the power, and I couldn't influence him. So I had to leave. And what I learned was I've never met anyone who showed up to work and said, I'd really like to suck at work today. And yet so many people are ineffective. I've also never met a founder or an entrepreneur who said, I want to have a marginally successful business where the people I employ and pay to take care of my customers hate their work and in some cases hate me. Yet I know that only 30% of businesses turn a profit. And I know that 75% of Americans, according to study after study, do not like their job. And so that's why I came on this mission, because it's not that hard to run a compelling business. And so I'm grateful that I had that experience, as frustrating as it was. And sometimes we shy away, like, oh, I'm just comfortable. I just want to But the reality of it is sometimes we have to lean into it. What am I learning here? What is the lesson? And that's a little bit harder to do because it challenges us. But what I do know is that once you have clarity on what the goal is, the path reveals itself. So I think I said this in this room once or twice. What did we expect to happen? Once we're clear on what the goal is, then the actions we need to take reveal themselves. So for me, I'm in the middle of writing 2 books. My wife keeps on asking me where they are. I said, it's like at a bar at 2:30 in the morning and pushing a peanut across the floor with your nose. I'll get there, sweetheart. I'll get there. I know that every great company needs great people. So I have the 9 principles of personal performance. I know that every business needs to operate on a framework and a model. So I have the business acceleration model, so that you can point to things and say, this is what's not working. Same thing for you in your business, in your area of responsibility. You should have frameworks. Frameworks allow you to go faster. And then the gap that happens is who messes it up? Who messes it up? The leaders mess it up. Extreme ownership. So when something goes wrong at Rockway, it's Matt's fault. Extreme ownership. So the last piece is the leadership gap. And it's a 3-part framework to help leaders show up authentically as themselves. So the leader is individual. Let's get all the junk out of our life that's keeping us from doing what we want to go do. The leader is technician, so the 11 leadership competencies, and the leader is strategist. Someone has to chart the way forward, right? So it became very clear to me that if I'm going to do that and help create a positive, better world through business, because that's the gift that the world gave me, that's what I was going to need to go do. And I need to be on lots of these stages to talk to people about what that looks like. That's how I know in 5 years whether I'm on track to make that impact. Here's where people get intention wrong, in my experience, is they think about intention of what I want to get. I want you to consider flipping that on its head. What do you need to give to get what you want? Because it's the giving that's greater than the getting. If you want to have influence, you have to be in your mind charting the path forward, but at the same time, what am I willing to go give to do that? And if you're not willing to do the work, you're going to be sorely disappointed. For those of you who are still pursuing what the next step would be in your career, this is something that I built with a VP of operations who wanted to become the COO. And I said, okay, how do we become so good they can't ignore you? Cal Newport's book. If you've not read it, it's a great book. And we charted a path and we said, here are the skills that we need to develop. How can we do it by audio, by video? What conferences and events do we need to go do? What reading? And we got really very specific. When was it going to happen? What skill and insight do we expect? The frequency, the time investment. I want you to take charge of your career. We want to think that other people are going to chart that path for us. They are not going to do it. You have to be a steward of your own career. I have always wanted to be CEO. Always. I thought I was going to be president. That didn't work out. Thank goodness. But I think being intentional in the process allows you to be in that place where you're not blowing like a leaf. Don't leave your life to chance. Do the work. So I'm going to give you that too. How do you judge? Anyone have insight on this? How do we judge? This is a psychological truth. We judge ourselves by our intentions, and we judge other people by their actions. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to be an asshole, Jody. Sorry about that. However, and so one of my challenges to you is to judge yourself by your actions and your results. Stop judging yourself by your good intentions. It's just like going to a trade show that we've always gone to, but the numbers say we should not be going to this. Well, we're going to go there. You have to be ruthless here, which leads me to trust. So trust is the confidence, reliability, integrity, compassion, competence of a person or an organization. That's how I think about trust. Trust is the WD-40 in every organization. It is the lubricant. Why do things move faster? Because I trust. I think back to the best COO that I ever worked with. His name was Zach Mitchell. And I could look at Zach, nod twice, and we knew exactly what was going on, and I trusted that Zach was going to execute. There was no mother henning. There was no running behind, hey, did you get that done? The level of trust was extreme. How do you think about this? Is trust earned or is trust given? Earned. Could be both. For a long time, I thought trust was earned. And just recently I've been thinking about this because I was finishing the leadership competencies. And I now really believe that trust is given. So I think it's given based on someone else's beliefs, experiences, and trauma. That's where it comes from. So I can act in ways that are trustworthy, but someone else may have a hang-up that leads them not to trust me. I'll give you an example. I was running a construction company, and I had an employee walk in, and he had been there, I don't know, Tom has been there 18 months, and he said, I didn't trust you. I was like, tell me more. He said, in the past, I had a CEO who didn't pay me a bonus, and so I didn't trust any CEO. But you've given me no reason to believe. You've paid out all my bonuses, you've always treated me fairly, I've gotten promotions. But it was up to him, not me, in that. So I have to own my stuff, but at the end of the day, if John doesn't want to trust me, it's your gig. Anyone been in relationships at work or in life where despite acting in really aligned, authentic, intentional ways, you still haven't earned someone's trust? What? I have. Right? It's like, shit, why does that happen? It's frustrating. It's not my trust to give. It's their trust to give. And I think about influence in the same way. I can be super authentic. I can have the emotional intelligence. I can have the crucial conversations that line up to all of those things. But that doesn't mean that someone else gives me the opportunity to have influence. Dee may say he's full of shit. Right? I don't like him. So yes, that is me. So would you trust a lip-syncing executive who has shut down 3 companies and started a 3-alarm fire? All of those things have happened. So trust can be situational. It can be situational. I was 8 when I started the fire, just as a note. That wasn't recent. It was 8, but I did start a 3-alarm fire. And so when you think about this, we judge people on the whole of their actions. We look, like if we all get judged on our worst moment, our worst decision, no one stands up to that. So maybe that's not the right litmus test to be thinking about it. How does trust get built? This is the greatest model that I have encountered about trust. It comes about competency. Do you know what the heck you're doing? Like, this person's smart, they talented, do they know what the heck they're doing? Consistency comes back to authenticity. See how those things pull together? If I'm not consistent because I'm inauthentic and I haven't done the work, I'm going to show up differently every time, Aaron. And that becomes a problem. It's like, I don't trust him because yesterday it was this way. Integrity. I trust you to do the right thing. Not only to do the things right, but to do the right thing. Interesting distinction. And compassion. I believe in compassionate leadership. If you want to see compassionate leadership, Jeff Weiner from LinkedIn has lots of videos about compassionate leadership. It is a great roadmap of leading authentically, with intention, and with compassion. When I think about trust, and specifically aligning to some of what you do, one of the shifts that I'm seeing is that people are moving away from brand and to faces. They're not buying logos, they're buying faces. So when you think about your content strategy, is it a face that someone's connecting to, or is it a logo? And I just say that as a global insight that I'm seeing. People buy from people. People connect to people. And 20 years ago, it used to be Nike, right? Just do it. I think that world is changing a little bit. The other thing when I think about trust, and I just wanted to put this because I thought it was relevant to you, I'm very encouraged about the event space. And the reason I am is because of the rise of AI. It is very hard to know who to trust anymore. This company had a deep fake, and one of their employees wired 20 million pounds to Hong Kong. How did it happen? They hacked into the system. The CFO sent an email and said, we have this secret engagement that's happening. We need to hop on a call. And they hopped on a video call. And there were 3 executives, including the CFO. Video replicated his voice. And the senior accounting person wired $20 million in like 7 different transactions before he went, It just doesn't feel right. How can you trust when what's on the other side looks real, sounds real, and is plausible? And so when I think about bridging know, like, and trust, I can now say, I've met John. Good dude, 2-year-old kid, had a rough night's sleep last night, right? We can have these conversations. I can vouch for people. I think what technology is providing is the opportunity to go back to old school. And so I'm envious of the positions that you guys are in because you have the opportunity to create connections in ways that can't happen digitally. Maybe it can be enhanced digitally. I'm sure I'll connect with all of you, but you can't replace this. This is a unique opportunity. And so while people say like, oh, you can do it digitally, we did it during COVID, la, la, la. Right? Look at how fast this industry came back. I mean, bang. So this is just something I've been thinking about. So what has to be true to be given influence? This is my hypothesis. I think you have to have authentic, deep reflection. You have to do the work on yourself to say, here's how I'm going to show up. Ties back into trust. You have to have purpose-stated intentions. Don't let people guess at who you are and what you're all about. Just tell them. Take what's invisible and make it visible. Why do we do that as human beings? Like, oh, I'm going to wait for this thing and then I'll get mad at Dia and then I'll tell her my mind. It's like, no, just give Dia the rules of the game. Here's how best to work with me. Here's how it works. We've just got to put our egos aside to do that, right? When you really think about it, you're in the game of connection. Event marketing is in the game of connection. Make sure that you're connecting yourself. Aligned actions to create trust. Communication. If you can't communicate, it is the greatest hindrance of your ability to have influence. Go take public speaking skills, go join Toastmasters. It even helped Pablo. Your ability to communicate and articulate your ideas is paramount to your ability to have influence. And curiosity, right? Curiosity ends the minute you have a belief. We stop being curious. So one of my morning intentions that I say every day is live in wonder, not in judgment. Live in wonder, not in judgment. Because I want to say, you stupid idiot, tell me more about that, right? And it keeps me wiring my mind again and again. Imagine telling yourself that every day. It allows me the ability to say, that's really interesting. I've never thought about it that way. We were in a session this morning. You were giving great counsel about working with difficult people who are showing up in difficult ways, obtrusive ways, getting in the way of succeeding. And staying curious. That was the counsel you were giving. Tell me more about that. What's your vision for it? How might you do that? What do you think that might cost? Right? Instead of saying, you're stupid, you're coming in at the last minute, you're messing this up for me. Right? So curiosity is a great piece. That is my cell phone number. That's not like a fake cell phone number. If that's helpful to you, on the right side is a QR code. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will get you the leadership as individual, the next step. And I send a weekly text, almost weekly. I spend about 20 to 25 hours on the phone every week with CEOs. And I just try and synthesize those ideas. What am I seeing? What's happening out there? And so I send a weekly test. If you're interested in getting that, you can just put your cell phone number on it, and I'll just add you to the list that it goes out to.